Bloodstrike Ranked might just be one of the most traumatic experiences in mobile gaming history, and if you've played it, you already know that. So today, I'll be breaking down the 7 levels of Bloodstrike Ranked players. Stage 1, the starting point. These are the players who don't really know anything about the game. They might not even know how they entered the ranked match in the first place, but somehow they made it here. These players don't even know what the sprint button is, but you can't blame them. We've all had to start somewhere. These players will pick up literally anything they see on the ground. 2 shotguns, 2 snipers, or just 2 completely different weapons that make no sense together. And when they finally run into an enemy, the fight usually ends in pure confusion. But eventually, after playing a few games, they move on to the next stage. Stage 2, the newbie. This is the stage where players have played a few ranked games and they actually know how to sprint, shoot, and do the basics in Bloodstrike. But somehow, these players always end up thinking they're good at the game just because they killed a few bots that they thought were real players. This actually causes a lot of people to think the game is easy. But at this stage, they haven't even encountered their first decent player yet. Because once that happens, everything changes. Stage 3, the awakening. This is when you realize, damn, I'm trash. Because after you encounter your first decent player, you get cooked so badly it completely destroys your tiny ego. You thought you were good at the game, and then suddenly someone slides around a corner, does 2 slides, and sends you straight back to the lobby before you can even react. And that one match changes everything. Your whole view on the game changes. But this is a canon event for every player. There's no avoiding it. Every Bloodstrike player has that moment where they realize the skill gap is way bigger than they thought. Stage 4, realization. After reaching Legend, you've finally come to accept that you're not as good as you thought you were. You start losing to movement you've never seen before, and quite frankly, movement you didn't even think existed. Players are sliding, strafing, bunny hopping, and you're just sitting there wondering what just happened. But this is actually a good thing, because this is the stage where players finally stop blaming everything else and start realizing they need to improve. And that leads us to the next stage. Stage 5, the training arc. This is where the real grind begins. You start watching tier lists and movement guides just to improve your knowledge of the game. You spend hours watching other players play so you can replicate their movement. Now you're studying the game instead of just playing it. You start taking matches way more seriously, and you actually practice certain techniques you see from other players. Bunny hopping, slide canceling, positioning, all of it. You're no longer just playing ranked. You're building your skills, and after a while, the work finally starts to pay off. Stage 6, the wannabe pro. This is where players actually start to see the work they put in pay off, and they can finally see the end of the tunnel. But there's a big emphasis on the wannabe part. Yes, you're finally able to hold your own in regular ranked matches. You're winning more gunfights, your movement is cleaner, and you're starting to feel way more confident when you take fights. The things that used to destroy you before, like bunny hopping or aggressive pushes, are now things you can actually deal with. You even start hitting some clips here and there. Maybe you wipe a squad, maybe you clutch a 1v3, and for a moment you start thinking, yeah, I might actually be good at this game. But this is also the stage where players start realizing just how big the skill ceiling really is. Because every once in a while, you'll run into a player that completely humbles you. A player whose movement looks impossible, whose aim feels perfect, and whose game sense makes it seem like they already know what you're about to do before you even do it. And suddenly all that confidence you built up gets tested again. At this stage, you're good, but you're not that good yet. You're still improving your skills and still trying to understand how the top players think during fights. This is basically the stage where you're good enough to beat most players. But the best players will still make you look like a beginner. And once you start noticing that difference, you begin chasing the final stage. Stage 7, the top players. And finally, we have the last stage. These are the players who have completely mastered the game. Not only are these players good at complicated techniques, they've completely mastered the fundamentals of the game. When it comes to map awareness, clutch plays, and overall game sense, these players are on a completely different level. These are the players everyone else in ranked is trying to become. But the biggest downside to this stage is how boring the game gets after reaching the highest level. You really don't have anything to chase, and the game loses its spark.